A world leader in both physical and digital fitness, our guest today has founded innovative club chains, built business brands, and successfully sold ventures to move on to the next opportunity time and time again. Once a fighter, always a fighter. His martial arts success has only been matched by a fighting spirit on his entrepreneurial journey. He holds many senior positions as chairman of Barry's Bootcamp Nordic, urban fitness chain Repeat, the investment group Stockholm Leisure Partners, and he's also executive vice chairman of Wexa Virtual. For international inspiration and more, please welcome Rasmus Ingerslev to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
Am I good on that? Have I pronounced it right?
It's perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So what's it like being married to the most powerful or successful mother in Sweden?
Well, I think what I really like about my wife is the fact that she understands me better than anyone. And that makes me incredibly comfortable in my relationship compared to where I've been previously.
Right, yeah. And is it a challenge to kind of, so I've met your beautiful wife before, and she's a brain surgeon. So
Yes.
so I should imagine the sort of conversations when you first met were were interesting.
Well, absolutely. Well, we met in the south of France in 2011 over a lunch, and I immediately fell in love and was blown away both by her beauty but also her intelligence. She is, as you said, a brain scientist. She's also a medical doctor, and she actually studied philosophy as well. So she's a very intelligent woman, and that really appeals to me because the level of discussions we can have are obviously phenomenal, but also I can bounce things of her that just it feels comfortable to be able to do in a relationship. Right. I have a good friend who said once to me that you have the right partner when you both feel you're the lucky one, and that's definitely what I feel. I hope she feels the same though, but I really feel I'm the lucky one.
Right, and you're a very focused guy from what I understand, and I don't know if this is true or not, but is it right that before you met your wife, you kind of made a list of all the qualities that you wanted in a wife, and sort of, it came true when you met her? Is that true story?
That is true. I came out of a relationship after 4 years, and I had a 4-year relationship prior to that one, and kind of said, well, will I keep repeating this, or will I finally find the one that's right for me? So then I sat down and just tried to write down what is really important to me in a future partner. And without knowing it, after I had met my wife, like half a year, I found that list and I looked at everything I put down, and I could basically tick off all boxes. So I think, I'm not spiritual as per se, but I would say that I believe to some degree you attract what you set up as your goals in life. Or maybe it's just that you unknowingly are working towards them.
Right. And is that something that you have applied to all areas of your life? Where
yes, my way of goal setting is not only in my love life. Right? It's what I've applied in business as well. And typically, I just write down the most important things, the most important goals I work towards, and then I revisit every now and again. And I actually did the same exercise I did on my own in regards to my future wife, who is now my current wife. We did that together and wrote down all our goals individually and as a couple and as parents, and revisited that again just to see, well, have I actually moved in the right direction? And I could see I could put a lot of tick marks on the list of things that I had wanted. And it isn't really something I take out and look on very frequently. But I just believe the fact that I've set those goals, they're in the back of my mind all the time, and my activity, how I spend my days, and the effort I put into my work is aligned with those goals.
Yeah, and so one of the things I'm just trying to find this quote at the moment, but when you were doing your martial arts, I think one of the things that you mentioned is that your mind can be your biggest enemy. What do you mean by that?
I think it can obviously be. You can be scared of things that you don't have to be scared about. So let's say entrepreneurship, for instance. If you fail as an entrepreneur, you won't die. So the risk of entrepreneurship is nothing compared to the risk of driving a car without your seatbelt. If you crash your car without a seatbelt, there's a great risk you'll die. That's not so with entrepreneurship. However, our brains kind of react in the same way, kind of, oh, I'm gonna die. So I think to some extent we're not really very good at handling fear, and we crumble ourselves in regards to what we can do. We don't live up to our full potential because we limit ourselves based on fear. So for me, learning to control fear and pushing through fear has definitely been an important exercise for me. I was a heavyweight when I was on the national karate team. I wasn't that old when I was drafted for the team. Sometimes, looking at these 2-meter guys, 120 kilos, you ask yourself, can I really handle this? Because the only thing this guy on the other side wants to do is to kick you and punch you as hard as he can and hopefully make you give up. And I think when you push yourself through that kind of experience, which was mentally challenging, when you then later sit at a negotiation in business, I know he's not going to kick me or punch me in the face. So you kind of, I think the extreme makes the normal feel easy. So I like to push hard in general. When I work out, I push myself hard. And I think I pushed my boundaries in many ways, making ordinary things feel very easy in that way.
Right. Do you think that's one of the things that separates the people? There's a lot of people in your world, in your space, operating fitness clubs.
Yeah.
Do you think that mentality is one of the things that probably sets you a little bit apart from the people that have had the success that you have and the ones that want to have it, do you think?
I think in general, if you read about entrepreneurship, you'd read that 9 out of 10 startup companies goes bust over time. And I think a big difference between the 1 and the 9 is the mindset. I think it's the most important factor. And I strongly believe that one of the reasons why I have succeeded, and I still am among the 1 and not the 9, actually multiple times, has to do with my mindset. I fight. If you would play whatever kind of sports with me, even though you're way ahead, I will never give up. I'll always keep fighting until, I can lose, but I never give up before I've lost. I will fight to the very end. And sometimes in business, that has actually been the difference between going bust and succeeding. Some of the companies, my first company that we built and sold eventually to a listed company, we were close to going bust twice. If I had just given up and said, I'm so far behind now, I can never win, I would have been stuck with a debt that was way beyond what I could probably ever pay back. But rather than acknowledging that as an outcome, I went to the banks and laid forward new plans on how we could do this. I went to the landlords, I went to everybody who we had an engagement financially with, and told them about the issue we had, how I had planned to overcome it, and they acknowledged. I think everybody will acknowledge that there are difficult times in life where you need somebody to understand and help you out, and that's what they did, and that's why we eventually succeeded. So I think having a fighting mentality, really wanting something that bad, that not giving up, will set you apart.
Right. I've read, and also I think there's a flip side to that, and I've seen this in a lot of driven people, and I read one of your posts recently about this. And how do you get that balance from? So one of the examples you gave was when you were competing and you didn't know when to rest. There's times where you should be pushing, and then there's sometimes where it's like, look, now I should probably take my foot off and rest. Or in a business case, it's like, well, maybe actually I should reevaluate. Maybe I'm too caught up into this idea, and maybe I should sort of pull out. How do you get that balance between the drive that does make you win as an entrepreneur, but also knowing when to sometimes say no and step back and not continue?
I think it's a difference. One is mindset, the other one is physically, your body, being able to take care of your body. And I've come to realize that my mind is much stronger than my body. So I have to listen to what my body is telling me, to rest when it needs to rest, and then I can push hard. For a lot of people, it's the other way around. And so I think eventually it's all about truly understanding yourself. Are you a person who needs to kick yourself in the butt to get going? Or are you a person who every once in a while need to say to yourself, now you can actually rest, you need to get some rest. So that balance will be different from different people. But for me at least, it's all about respecting the body and understanding that if I don't rest when my body really needs to rest, I'm going to pay, and I'm going to pay much more than the period of time it would take me to rest when I'm going downhill than if I try to rest when I'm at the very bottom. It just takes too much time to recuperate if you burn yourself out, and I've unfortunately done that. So, learning by doing.
Yeah. And do you think in business it can be like that as well, where you're very attached to an idea, and sometimes it's like, look, probably is a good time to throw the towel in and reassess? Because again, I've read into you, and in the Wexa project, for example, you were quite early into that, and it cost you a lot of money. Do you think that in all opportunities you should just continue to go until you succeed, or do you think sometimes it's like, well, maybe I should focus on my strengths, and maybe this isn't the right opportunity just because I've made something successful before? What's your thoughts on that?
The Indians have an expression: if the horse is dead, get off. And I think realizing if you're on a dead horse is very important. Being able to understand, is the horse dead, or does it just need to rest and get some new food and water? For me, in regards to Wexa, I was very, very early out, and I had to put that to rest. It wasn't dead, but I left it to rest while I was building my next venture. But I kept it alive rather than just putting it to sleep forever. And today it's the global market leading company within digital fitness. Because I kept fighting, but I came to the realization, said, well, I left my first club group as the CEO to build Wexa. Wexa didn't fly, and it was in the middle of the financial crisis. I couldn't raise more money. I couldn't afford to hire more people. So I ended up with that project as a solo project. I worked 4 years without a salary, and eventually said, well, it's going to be difficult to continue on down this route because there was no real light at the end of the tunnel. There was a few things I believe strongly in, which has proven to be right now, because now we're actually succeeding doing what I saw back then. But I think, putting that to rest, focusing on creating a new club group, saying, well, if this doesn't work, what do you really know well? I said, well, I really understand the brick and mortar fitness industry. And at that time, there's a gap in my market in true low cost. So that's why I created Fresh, using technology and actually adapting a little bit of the Wexa technology. And that's how we brought that back to life. I took on an intern, and then I was able to hire her full-time after her internship ended. Took another intern, hired that person afterwards. He's still there, by the way. So it was, from going all in to putting things to rest, just to work it back up again. Yeah. But never giving up on it mentally. Always, figuring out when is the right time to apply resources again to this project, because we were too early. And the second that I saw now it has legs, then we started applying more resources, and we worked and we worked and we worked. And now that company is 10 years old, and I said global market leading within digital fitness.
Yeah. I guess sometimes even a great idea, then timing has probably got a big impact to play on that.
Very big, yeah, no doubt. You can have the greatest of ideas, but if the timing is wrong, it's not gonna fly.
Right.
And that's to some extent what I experienced. I think I saw the opportunity in technology. I understood the metrics of our industry in regards to how can we utilize technology in a clever way. But the fact was, the market wasn't there. and the technology wasn't there. And if I look back at some of the big mistakes I've made in my career, that's definitely one of them, that I was too self-confident from having built the biggest health club groups in my country. And I made my first exit, made some money as well. I thought, well, everything I touch will turn into gold. Why not just go full throttle? And well, I paid expensively for that lesson. The good thing though is that what took me about 10 years to build the first time with the first club group took me about 4 years with the second club group, because I had learned so much. And the thing is that you may lose your money, but you'll never lose what you've learned. And that knowledge can easily be transformed into money.
Right. What do you think you would do differently? Obviously, there was a lot of learnings that you got, and probably now it was the right thing that happened. But if you went into another business and were focusing on this timing thing, what things would you think about if another opportunity came and you was in a similar situation today that you probably wouldn't do then?
Well, I feel I am in a similar situation almost every day, because the industry, the fitness industry, like many others, are more dynamic than ever. It changes faster than ever, and that means we have to adapt to make sure that we don't misread the market. We continuously do focus groups and customer services and surveys. And that would definitely be my advice, and that's also what I would do now if I was to go back and say, well, what should I have done? What should I have done? I should definitely have done some more customer surveys. I should definitely have done some focus groups. I should definitely have had a better understanding of technology, what can be applied right now, and understanding the bottlenecks. Because little did I know that they had very poor internet access in many countries at the time.
An obvious one, but one you don't think of at the time.
Easily end up living in your own bubble.
Right.
And as said, I was somewhat overconfident, and I was definitely not listening enough. And not so today I rarely make any big calls without having both data and my gut feeling. So I would probably not make a call based only on data, and I would probably never make a decision based fully on gut feeling. I will always try to find the middle way ground between the two.
Right. So we're here in this beautiful place, which you've obviously spent a long time creating, but it wasn't always like that. Just for people who don't know you, what was your younger, was it like where you grew up? What was your life, or did you come from this type of lifestyle?
No, definitely not. No, grew up in the concrete with a single mother of 3. Who unfortunately passed away when I was 16, so very young. Moved out to my father. So I think for me, I've always had a desire to create an environment around my family that felt very comfortable and safe. I remember one thing in particular was that my mother wanted a special treatment for her cancer that they have tested successfully in Germany, but we couldn't afford to give her that treatment. And I kind of promised myself that I will never ever be in a situation where I cannot afford to pay any given treatment for anyone that close in my family. So that has definitely been a driver for me to succeed financially as a safety net, because I don't want to ever have to say that no, we can't do that because of economy.
Right.
Then I've had a written goal in regards to how I wanted to live, and I've always dreamt of having a sea view, and that's what we have here. We have sea view, and also dogs have been a big priority for me. So I wanted a place where we had good space for dogs, and we do have that here.
Right. So what are some of the things that the early influences then that kind of you think caused you to be as driven and as focused as what you are? I know you're an athlete. When did you get involved in your karate?
Well, actually, rather late to become a national team athlete, and so I started, I guess, I was 12 or 13, which is fairly late. And karate has probably been, if I look back on education, probably one of the best educations I've had in regards to discipline, in regards to understanding if you want to succeed, how much you really have to put into it to get something back. But at the same time that how you socially have to work with other people to have them want to help you improve, become the best version of you, because you need to work with the best trainers to become the best one. You don't become the best just by yourself. You become the best if people help you become the best. So the social interaction was pretty important, and also with your training buddies, obviously. I was lucky in regards to karate that early on I met what has since then become my best buddy. So like a brother to me, and we've just worked out always together, and lived together, traveled together, and so in that regard it was a wonderful adventure that was almost 20 years of karate in my life, with 7 years I believe on the national team, with several national championships and some international championships as well.
And what was your highlight in that part of your sort of career, or would you say?
There were a few. I remember especially my first national team title was a very special moment to me, because that kind of proved to me, and it was kind of payback for all the hard work that I put in, because I didn't have a lot of support in regards to my choice of pursuing karate. My father was, why are you spending so much time on that? It's not like he's a football person, and he played more traditional sports like football, badminton, tennis. What's karate? I think he came to watch once, so he didn't really. And I don't blame him. It's difficult for the untrained eye to go watch a karate tournament. Also, he was a bit afraid that it would take my focus away from something that I could actually live from, because karate is not a professional sport. Even you become the best in the world, well, you're just the best in the world. You don't make any money based on that. But it gave me the best education in the world, I feel, in regards to understanding what it takes to become successful and building strong relationships. So I'm very, very grateful for my years in martial arts.
Yeah. And how did you go from, did you go to college, university when you were younger?
Yeah, I went to business school,
right,
and took an exam as a market economist. Thanks to, what do you call that, the principal on the school had a good understanding for what it took to be on the national karate team. Let's say that I didn't attend all classes. Obviously, we traveled a lot due to the tournaments, so I missed out quite a bit. But he allowed me to have a flexible schedule. I was supported by the all elite sport athletes. If you reach a certain level, get supported financially from this elite sports organization. So and they create special educational programs.
Right. Okay. So how did that go into fitness then? I know you talked a little bit about traveling in the US and seeing clubs. What was that journey to, the idea to opening your first club?
Well, karate definitely was my way into fitness as well. I started karate 12 or 13, and then at 14 I really wanted to go to the gym. Had to bring my father and he was very supportive of that. So he joined me in one of the local gyms, and since then strength training was kind of part of my training regimen, because if you want to be in any elite sports, you have to do some strength and conditioning training. And then I started going a lot to bigger gyms, and I really loved the environment. And when we started traveling with the national team, I got to visit gyms in many different countries, and especially the ones in the US inspired me, because they were so different from what we saw in Denmark, in the regards that the Danish fitness industry comes out of the bodybuilding industry. So it was predominantly dumbbells, strength training. It was all about the young and the beautiful. It wasn't really family oriented. So I actually made my final paper as a market economist on creating a health club group that would cater to the entire family, much more cardio, resistance machines, childcare, lounge areas with we can enjoy a cup of coffee. And that actually ended up being a lot of the thoughts that went into Fitness DK, which then became the largest club group in Denmark.
Right.
So my martial arts also inspired me to what would then become my livelihood and my career.
Right. So what was the step? Everyone has a dream, or not everyone, but a lot of people in the industry has a dream from opening their own fitness club, or particularly fitness chain. What were some of the steps from that idea to raising money, opening a club, and then expanding it? Just talk us through that story.
Actually, my early ambition was not to make a club, but was basically I wanted to become a physiotherapist before I studied to be a market economist. What kept me away from becoming a physiotherapist was I talked to a student council, said it's not likely that you can compete on the national team while you study. And said, well, I'm not going to study because karate at that time was an unfinished business for me, a chapter in my life. It meant everything to me. So I started to become a market economist and basically said, well, if I can end up living from working in the fitness industry, I made it. I actually believe strongly that if you do anything merely for the money, there's such a great risk that you'll lose because, well, only so many people actually get rich. So if being rich or wealthy is your only goal and you don't make it, you've lost. You've also lost all the time. And for me, if I could work with something I'm passionate about, I would win. I would win every day I went to work because I'm doing something I like. I can never lose. If I would then eventually be wealthy doing what I love, that would be an added benefit. But it's just a plus on top of it. And actually, I think I'm lazy in the sense that had you asked me to, mow my lawn every day, I would hate it. Or wash cars or something. I'm not very good at that. But I am very good at, creating concepts and building businesses. So I think it's important to figure out what you love to do. And if you have any chance, which you can create, if you don't have it, it's not given to you, you can create it. You should definitely work with something you're passionate about. And that's the fortune I've had in life, that not only was I able to work with something I'm passionate about and turn it in, I can now offer other people with the same ambition their work. They can work with their passion in one of the businesses that I run. And I made more of them partners as well.
Right. So how did you do it though? What was, it was an idea at one point in your life. My guess is that you suddenly said, well, yeah, let's do this.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it boils down to if somebody believes in you. Because I said, well, when you come from nothing, it's difficult to all of a sudden create a club group which requires a pretty substantial amount of money. So I was lucky. We were 3 partners, and one of the partners had made an exit and said, I'll vouch for your loan for your part, and you'll pay me an interest, which was very fair.
So just before that, so were they friends that you knew and you were working for them? Or?
This was a woman that I didn't know.
Right.
I worked with a gentleman in my hometown who had offered me a job in the industry. So he happened to be one of the guys from the karate club where I trained. He was running a gym, and he said, I need a guy to sell memberships. Do you want to be that guy? And that's why, fortunate for me, I just, in the midst of writing up this final paper on creating a club group, and I said, well, yes, I would, but just for you to understand, my ambition is to own a gym sometime in the future. And we can do that together, I can do it on my own, but just for you to understand, I don't want you to be disappointed later in life that this is my ambition. So let me be clear, this is what I want to do. So that's fine. And then he hired me, sold memberships, only to figure out pretty soon that the general manager in that club, he had a funny way of doing finances. It was one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. And so he went out, and then 3 months later, I was the general manager of the club. That wasn't really my ambition per se, but that's how it ended up being. And quite a journey. At that time, I think I took over 30 employees. When I left that club group later, I was the CEO of a company running 2,200 employees. So I took that journey from 30 to 2,200.
So he just had one club that you were selling memberships in at the time,
that's
right?
How I started.
And then you expanded that.
What then happened? I started working with him, selling memberships, and as we worked together, I was talking to him more and more about the ideas. I had this paper that I had made, and he said, well, that makes sense. And he believed in my ideas, and he allowed me to take a lot of education through something called CMS, Club Marketing and Management System. A guy from the US called Mike Chait, the club dog, he was really a mentor for me in the fitness industry in my early years. As we shared all those thoughts on how to do and what to do, he also knew that I wanted to be part of the ownership side of things. And we then got an opportunity to expand to a few more cities. That's a story in itself. But a third partner was brought in, a woman, and she was actually the one who ended up, when we then founded a new company together. The guy I work for, this lady, and myself, and she ended up vouching for my loan to create this new club group, which was Fitness DK, which grew to become the largest health club group in Denmark.
Wow.
And so, you have to have somebody that believes in you. If it's the bank, if it's a private person, whoever it is. I didn't want to loan money off my family, that was for sure. So I was fortunate, as said, that she wanted to back me.
Right. And what do you think? Because you'd obviously gone to university and studied, but you'd not really had a lot of experience in a club apart from working in it, or certainly not to run a big chain like that. No. What were some of the things that you either came to you or that you worked hard on to remain successful through that journey?
Well, I can say that some of the days I'd missed school, I really regretted that I didn't have. Basically, it felt like I was fixing a car with a toolbox that really missed a lot of tools, because I lacked education. I didn't go to university, I went to business school. Oh, okay. So kind of like a bachelor level. So it was learning by doing, or as my accountant used to say, learning by doing and paying. And obviously you make mistakes when you don't, but I'm not really sure that had I known more theory, I would have made less mistakes. I don't know. But it was early days. I think the market is far more competitive today. I think you probably couldn't make the mistakes I did back then and survive. But at the time, we saw significant growth. We were by far the biggest brand in our country. We had preference from the consumers. So we must have been doing something right. And I think I was close to the product. I was close to our employees, the staff. Obviously got a little bit more difficult when we were 2,200 than at 30. But I think that's probably some of the key learnings, to stay very close to things. Early days, when we were only 30 and I was fresh out of school, I thought, well, I know all there is to know. It's almost like when you start karate. You started as a white belt and you say, I know nothing. Then you get the yellow belt. Now I know everything. Only to become more and more humble as when you end up as a black belt saying, I still have a lot to learn. And I think it was kind of the same journey. I came to understand that trying to come up with brilliant ideas doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how brilliant they are. If you don't have any buy-in from the rest of the team and the staff, it's not going to happen. So I think that's was some of my early learnings that definitely was game-changing in regards to leadership, to fully understand that unless people take ownership, unless you engage them, unless you make them part of the process, it's not going to happen. And nobody's going to do something just because you tell them to. They will do something when they own it, when they feel in their bones that this is the right thing to do. And the way to do that is to involve them and let them see their own thumbprints in the decisions we make. And that I kept, although we were at 2,200 staff. So, and that, I believe, was one of the reasons why we continued to be successful.
Yeah. So I'll come on to your latest ventures in a moment, but I just want to kind of see if there's a parallel. So obviously the industry's changed a lot in those times in terms of consumer preference, in terms of where the rest of the industry's going. But are there any constants that you got right in those days that still would apply today in your business, do you think?
Well, I would say the leadership factor is definitely the same. That I think I've been astonished to see how you can run your company with a spreadsheet and a baseball bat and be successful. Some people do, but I think it comes down to integrity, because there are people who would normally, that's their personality, that's what they'll do, and some people actually feel comfortable in that kind of an environment, being told exactly what to do, just go execute, and this is how you do it. Whereas I am a very different type of leader who likes value-based leadership. I want to involve people, engage them, take ownership. And people who like that type of leader are attracted to the businesses that I run. So I think leadership is probably the constant. And what has become more necessary now, more than ever, is probably the ability to handle change management, basically, because things are changing faster and faster, which is kind of scary in the fitness industry, where we're pretty investment heavy, and a lot of the things we invest in are invested in over maybe a 5 to 10 year period. And if you look back 10 years, how our industry looked and looked at it today, who can predict what it's going to look like in 10 years, and then invest in that today and say, well, I'll pay it all back in over the next 10 years. That's the risk. So I think it's become somewhat more difficult. The industry, it's so much more challenging. But I think what that requires more than ever is good leadership.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I've never heard anyone say that. When people open a club, based on the significant investment, it is a long-term, it's not a 2 or 3 year, it is a 5 to 10 year, depending on what sort of facilities you own. And so how, to be able to predict where that model is still going to be relevant in that time is quite difficult, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I think your point is that constant that you've identified, if you've got the leadership and you've got the people, then you're going to mitigate other things that are going, trends and that in the market. I think that's quite an important statement that I think a lot of people, I've never thought or heard about it before.
I basically, what I try now is if I have good people and I have a good location, then I can paint the walls, I can change the equipment, I can do a lot of things, and I'll still be competitive. But if I compromise on those two things, if I don't have the best people, if I don't have a good location, then I put myself at great risk.
Yeah. So we had a chat earlier at lunch about this, and I think it's important to talk about. How do you think the role of the leader has changed in the new world with social media and Facebook, Instagram? What do you think? Do leaders need to be more out there? Can they be behind closed doors? Tell us your view on that, please.
Well, I think a lot. It boils down to credibility again, or integrity. For me, I think I can be on social media with integrity, because what I do is who I am on social media. If I was to do something on social media merely to be on social media, but it wasn't really me, then I would be fake. And I think leadership is about being real. It's about integrity more than anything. So I think it's difficult to say in general that everybody should do Instagram. But I think if they shouldn't do Instagram, they should probably do some other social media. I think there's a great risk that you'll be out of touch with your consumers, with your members as a health club operator, if you're not on social media. The problem is that me as a leader, now I'm 44, if I look at our average member, they are mid-20s. So there's a 20-year gap. And I would probably not have spent as much time on social media hadn't I worked with that core demography as our end users. So, but I don't believe that I can cater well to them if I don't understand them. If I'm not where they are, I don't understand them. So that's why I invest in understanding their behavior and trying to be close to them and allow them to be close to me as well. From a leadership perspective, I think I've probably never been as transparent as a person as I am today, which social media allows me to be. My staff knows what I eat. They know where I travel. They've seen my kids. If I go back 10 years, they probably wouldn't have seen my kids nor understand what I eat and why. They understand a lot of my beliefs, and I share a lot of my experience, hoping that, I see doing business as a journey. They are now part of my company, and anything I can do to strengthen them in regards to whatever they want in life later on, I'd like to do. The more I share with them, the more they can hopefully learn, and the stronger they will be in pursuing their own goals. So that's why I'm putting in an effort to share the goods and bads of my history from an ambitious young guy who wanted to build businesses in the fitness industry to where I am today. Hopefully I really truly hope that I can inspire and motivate them to live the lives that will make them happy.
Right. So I've followed you for a while on Instagram, and although you see some great pictures and you're in great shape, I think it's easy to miss the message. So, you do the pictures, as do a lot of people, but then you seem to spend a lot of time on the, on the explanation that there's a message. There's always like a story behind it, and that story has a great lesson to it. Relates to different things in your life. Is that a strategy? Is that something you've developed? What's your, how do you approach that, and what could we learn from it?
I want to be of value. I don't want to waste people's time. I can't see why it's interesting to look at a picture of me, merely a picture of me saying, "Oh, happy Friday." You could look at any person in the world who will say happy Friday. I believe that I have a unique story and a unique experience that I want to share, hoping that that can be of value. So if you follow me, I want to be of value to you. Otherwise, you shouldn't follow me. So yes, it's a very deliberate choice that I want to share valuable lessons to whoever follows me on social media. I think that's the reason they should follow me.
Yeah. So it's you're kind of inspiring people, I guess.
Yeah. I think because that's what I can do, right? Because I was kind of thinking, well, what's unique about me? And what's unique about me is I've been successful building multiple businesses in the fitness industry. So how have I succeeded doing that? And that's basically what I'm trying to reflect on and trying to share, so that others who are engaging on ventures can hopefully learn something from that.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of people, and we had this conversation. If you're not from that age group, and I'm certainly older than you, and I've realised I'm not from that. But I guess with the people around us and our friends, it can be seen. You can be. And we use the term. People can take the mickey out of you. They can take the piss out of you. They can make you feel uncomfortable from doing that because it's not the right thing. It's not seen as though it's the right thing to do, particularly if you're someone who runs a big company and that sort of thing. And you've got this peer pressure saying, why are you doing that? Why are you doing a picture where you're taking your top off? What would you say to people that probably have got the potential to do what you do, but have got that fear of what their friends and other business people would say? Do you think it's important for them to sort of get over themselves and do it, or how would you sort of answer that probably internal concern?
It comes back to what I said just a little while ago in regards to integrity. If that is what you would normally do, you should do it. If you're doing what you're doing because that's what other people expect you to do, you're not being true. You're not really being the person you want to be. What I do is who I am. And I think funny thing about getting kids is that it puts things into perspective. What's important and what's not important. I would spend a lot of time being concerned about what other people would think about me earlier on. Now it doesn't really matter so much to me because I know what does really matter, and my kids are very important to me. So if somebody thinks I'm too much, too little, or too undressed or too dressed, I don't really care. What I can see though is it allows me to be closer to my employees than I've ever been before, but also scout talent that can be future employees and kind of reach out because I continuously build businesses. So for me it's a good first step to build relationships. And people, it's kind of like a long job interview process. They see who I am, they know what they get, who they see online is who I am. They understand my values as a person, they understand where I come from. So for me, being true, if somebody else has an opinion about that, I'm perfectly fine. Probably there's a likeliness that I'll get the employees they won't be able to get because they're not there. That's all good. So I'm happy with it, and they shouldn't because it's not who they are, right? So I'm a good match with those persons, and they're not. You have to recognize and be respectful to the fact that we're different. That somebody would laugh at me for doing what I do online, well, that's fine. He's just different.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's in your repeat club. You've got some very sort of high-profile trainers, and you mentioned that that's actually helped you kind of attract that type of person. Is that right?
No, well, no doubt. I think it's say that you run you're a venture company, a big venture capitalist group. You own a club group. You hire a CEO who comes from a different industry, but he's performed really well. Not really a fitness guy. If you look at a personal trainer and the relation he would have to that guy, it's slim to nothing. If you look at me, who is at the core a person who's passionate about exercise, who works out a lot and still can do some good things from a workout perspective, there's a much closer relationship. If they, on top of that, understand that I'm sharing whatever I can share to bring value to them, I think it's just far easier for me to create a strong relationship with people who share the same passion than it is for a guy who is hired by a venture capital company to run a club group, which is basically, spreadsheets saying, well, we should charge this much, do that, blah, blah, blah. Not a lot of gut feeling, not a lot of in-depth understanding, not a lot of connection, neither with the employees nor with their members. It's a business. Yeah. What I do is a passion, and it's a passion I've wanted to be able to live from. It's a passion that I want other people to be able to live from because they follow what they really want to do in life. Hopefully we can create a business around that, but I truly believe that to create any value, to create any business, you have to create value for people. So our focus is basically on how can we create the greatest value and figure out a way we can do that in a way that allows us to continue to do it, meaning that we have to make a profit. Obviously, we can't continue doing that if we lose money. So I know it's you can be somewhat idealistic in this industry, but you also have to be a good merchant. You have to understand that you have to make a profit. And though I believe those who are more skewed towards only the profits, they'll be here for a short while. Those are only idealistic, they'll also be here for a short while because they'll go bust. Those who understand how to combine the two in a way that they can do it sustainably, they'll be here forever and ever. And that's what I intend to do. Yeah. I want to do the right thing with people that I really care for and like to work with because, it makes my day to work with these people. But I also understand if I can't make money, I can't keep doing it. So that's part of the deal.
Yeah, and I guess in this business, it is a people business, and you want to attract the best talent, and I guess it's not just about nowadays people don't just want to work for a paycheck. They also want to work for a company they feel that there's some meaning to, and I guess certainly what you're doing seems to kind of give people that meaning as well, over, as you say, over the guy who's the spreadsheet guy. It's like, well, who would you rather work with if you had a choice?
Well, some would obviously like that because that brings other things with it. So I think it's about, I would say my advice to anybody who's trying to build their career is try to find a leader who matches you well on values. That's critically important. Somebody who's willing to invest in building you as well, and securing your future growth, and somebody who's done things you want to be able to do. I think that's the right type of leader. And for some people, that would be a person like me, and for others, that would be another person who would be the right leader for them. So I think you have to understand who you are to be able to find the right leader to work for, and to reach your own maximum.
I think that's a good point as well, because it relates on a few different levels. I think if you look at businesses nowadays, they're not quite sure who they are, and I've heard you talk about this as well before. I think probably as a business, you've got to know who you are and who your customers are, and you've got to be authentic and credible to them. And I guess as a leader, you need that from the people who work with you. And I guess it's a very sort of vertical process. And I suppose if you're a business and you don't quite know who you're meant to be as a business or who you're going after, because some people are trying to go after everyone. And then as a leader, it's like, well, who am I trying to please? And I think that's probably where businesses like yourself, who have clearly been successful, have the edge, because you know who you are and who you're trying to be, and there's no secrets. You either like it or you don't.
A friend once said to me, everybody's friend is nobody's friend. And I think that's very true, that you can't be everybody's friend. You have to choose who you want to be valuable to. And that's basically when we built Repeat, that was a decision we made early on. I basically said, if nobody's going to turn on their heel and walk out and said, this is the shittiest club they've ever seen, we've not been successful in creating something that has enough edge to it. It needs to be a place where nobody will love us if nobody hates us. Yeah. And we have to live with that. And we have to accept that, as you said, especially in a market that size we are, because a lot of it has to do with maturity of your market, obviously. If your task is to build an immature market, you have to have a very broad product. That's basically what we had with Fitness DK initially. That's what we did with Fresh as well. But now as the market matures, you have to, well, I believe at least, you have to focus more on and say, well, now I can't cater to the whole market. I have to cater to a special segment, make them feel at home, truly at home. And that's what we've done.
Yeah. Do you think that's what's happening now? If you look at, I guess, the global industry where you've got the low cost and the mid-market are kind of struggling, because I guess they were, in most cases, they did a bit of everything. They had spinning, group exercise, strength training, etc. And then you had the high end and the boutique. Do you think that's what's happening to the market, and that's why there's a greater need to be really good at one thing now, do you think? Or specialized, should I say?
I'm not sure you have to be specialized. You just have to be clear exactly who you are. If you're the best guy at doing 10 different things, that's okay. But you just have to be, everybody needs to understand that's who you are and that's what you do. Yeah. So I think it's more important now than ever to be very clear in regards to who you are, who you cater to. Obviously that's easier to some extent for a low-cost operator. Who are you? I'm the cheapest guy around. So if you want to work out and just need the equipment to do so, I'm your choice. It's equally easy, I would say, for the boutique operator who does one type of exercise. Like we offer, as you know, I run Barry's Bootcamp in Sweden. And for us, again, we have a very clear value proposition. We cater to a specific audience. We do one thing. It becomes almost like religion. It's easier to build a community around that. A high-end product. So, and that's why obviously it is somewhat more difficult to, okay, so who's in between and what are you offering and which price, why shouldn't I go up or down? Why should I go with you guys? I don't think mid-market is dead, but it's definitely become more challenged because they need to have a clearer identity.
Yeah. Where do you think it's going then? You've been in experiencing, I guess, in all different parts of it. You know, where do you see the next few years, if you could predict, with low cost? What do you see happening there? And with boutique, are things going to come together? What are you seeing from your perspective then in the general direction things are going?
Just taking it back a few years, there's no doubt that we saw a big development in our industry from low cost that really moved volume. And in addition, then we've seen the add-on of boutique fitness. And I think we haven't seen the end of that yet. We still see significant growth in the low-cost sector. We also see a significant growth in boutique. I believe that a lot of the future growth will come from understanding the opportunity in utilizing technology and digital service as to extend outside the four walls of clubs. I think we have to think of relevance to our consumers as not only being a physical location to go to. If you look at how we consume so if you watched a TV series, normally you would sit in your living room in front of your TV and you'd watch it. Now you watch it on the train, wherever you go, because you are watching it. You downloaded a Netflix series on your phone or your iPad or whatever. So the consumption of services have changed, and we have to realize that as an industry, that we have to be relevant in more locations than just inside the four walls. So I think the brick and mortar era as such will be challenged over the next coming years, and that I believe can be a huge opportunity and obviously also a huge risk, I think, for some operators. So if you look at it from an overall industry perspective, am I concerned for the industry? Not. I'm not. I truly believe that we'll continue to grow as an industry. Am I concerned about current operators, for current operators? Yes, I am. And I am because of a historical perspective saying, well, the significant change we've seen over the past 10 years, look at Global Top 25 in health club groups 10 years ago and look at them today. Those who were there 10 years ago didn't see the writing on the wall, and that has cost them dearly. There's a writing on the wall again today, and and change is happening faster and faster. So I would be afraid that some of the operators today may miss the changes. And I think there is a gap in regards to the understanding on where technology is today and where our industry is in general. And the greater the gap, the greater the risk of disruption. Meaning that it's not going to be current operators who will take that whole opportunity that lies within technology. We'll probably see new people coming outside our industry and making the most of that opportunity. We can see that with big brands building $100 or $1 million worth of businesses in a very short time utilizing technology. So I think technology is going to be a key driver, no doubt.
Yeah. Would something around, as you said, outside of the club, utilizing technology, if you were to come into it afresh today, is that where you would spend your time researching and trying to find an angle rather than sort of saying, well, I'm going to do a boutique or a low cost, or if you had to sort of, if you started from scratch again, is that where you would be thinking about if you wanted to make money in this space?
The thing is, once if you're only digital, you're also competing with the whole world. So if you build a physical club, you're competing with those who are 10-minute radius around you, right? So it's more defined. So it's very different. So the likeliness of succeeding purely digital is probably less than physical. However, the upfront investment is somewhat smaller because it's expensive to build a club, put in all the equipment, and you have to commit yourself to a lease for typically 5-10 years. So there are risks and there are rewards that you have to balance out. So I'm not really, the beauty obviously of digital is the scalability. If you hit it, it can scale indefinitely. If you build the most successful club, once you reach a certain number of members, you have to build the next club. So the capex is pretty significant, and there's a limit to the return on that investment. Whereas digital has, the beauty of that is the scalability. But again, only so many will be successful. Yeah. And you're not really seeing hugely successful companies within digital. You're seeing a lot of companies spending a lot of money without really getting a lot of results because they believe in the future rather than, they get so hyped about the future they forget to make money.
Yeah. So to answer that question, it's still a work in progress.
My latest investment is in a company that is an intelligent engine to create diet plans.
Diet plans, right.
It's a tool that are used by personal trainers, dietitians. And the beauty of that is that we can scale very fast to as many countries as possible. And it's a purely digital offering. So that's one side of my investment. Then I still do my clubs with Repeat. I still do Barry's Bootcamp, which are the traditional physical brick and mortar. You can pretty much do anything as long as you do it really well and you do it with passion and you're willing to put in the work it takes to succeed with the right people. So I just like the blend now between digital and physical. Physical will always be here. Digital is just very, very interesting because of especially because of the scalability. Yeah. I find that very fascinating.
Yeah. So just jumping back then to your early days. So Fitness DK, you told me you had this beautiful corner office overlooking, what was it overlooking?
National Stadium in Denmark.
The National Stadium. So it sounds like you were quite set up. You were probably making the money that you wanted, you're in a good position. What was the sort of decision that said, right, I've had enough of this, I'm going to go and dive off, and why did you do that?
It was two things. One thing was I had the idea for Wexer. I kept attending these conferences and read, for instance, Ursa publications. And they pretty much said the same thing. People who want to get fit but don't join health club don't join because of intimidation of the health club environment. It's too expensive or it's too time consuming. So I thought, well, I can handle that digitally because I'll create an online health club, Wexer. And then I'll take care of those issues. I'll make sure that you can work out at home, no intimidation factor. I'll fund it all by online advertisement, so it's going to be dirt cheap, and you don't have to spend money going back and forth to the gym or wait for a class to start. It starts when you want to start it. So I thought I had it all figured out.
And sorry, just to stop there, and that doesn't sound like a new idea, but what year was that?
2007.
Okay, so that was quite a long way before anyone was doing anything like that now today.
Yeah, that was very early days. So I said, I've got this brilliant idea. At the same time, you know, I am an entrepreneur. I'm very much you have to have others confirm that, but I consider myself a people's guy and value-based leadership. And the company we sold to was very much a top-down organization. We make decisions from the top and then they execute at the bottom. Whereas for me, it was about working out, listening to what are the members saying, what are they saying in the front desk, working with the general managers to fully understand what's your biggest challenges, and then coming up with suggestions saying, is this the way that we can move forward and overcome this? I kind of saw myself as a catalyst of information. I sucked in everything I could from everywhere I could in the organization, came up with a plan that I then presented and had them help me formulate and create. And then we executed, and it worked really well. And then all of a sudden I ended up in an environment where it was totally top down, and I lost motivation entirely. And at the same time I had, so I could probably have stayed on for a good long while with that company had it not been for leadership. But then at the same time I had this idea, and my, you know, entrepreneurial spirit said, well, let's go do it. You know, I had just made at the time I was an employee. I had a good, you know, stock option program. Everything was, and you know, good salary. Everything was kind of settled, but I wasn't happy. And I remember driving to work in my company car, my big Range Rover, but feeling sad. And I said, okay, if you will feel sad every day for one more week going to work, you're gonna stop.
Why do you feel sad then?
Because I just wasn't maybe not sad, but just not motivated. Kind of like not sad, just I don't want to go to work, which was a new feeling for me. Because I never really thought about it as going to work. I don't think about me going to work right now. It's, you know, people do Sudokus. I build businesses. Yeah. It's kind of it's my way of challenging my mind, and it's something I'm passionate about. I just love it.
I think that's an interesting thing as well for young people, and you mentioned it early, like people think, you know, when you get them, it's all about getting that money, getting the Range Rover, getting the share options, but from someone who's had that and then thought, well, actually, this isn't what I want, you know, it's about doing something I'm passionate about. I think that's, you know, it's very careful not to sort of lose sight on, you know, on the money. I know we all need it, we can't do without it, but I think it's an important lesson to learn from someone who's sort of been there.
I think when it comes to money, there was this survey, and it basically proved that regardless how much money you make, you would want to make 1.5 times more than you're making. In other words, you will never be happy with money. You would always strive for the next and the next and the next. So I think having happiness as a goal, not money as a goal, is the right way to go about it. I've seen people with a lot of money be miserable, and I've seen people with very little be very happy. And for me, the ultimate success in life is happiness. And I think happiness is connected with gratitude, that you have to be happy. For me to be able to do what I love every day with people that are passionate about the same thing that I'm passionate about, I'm very grateful for that. That's a dream come true. So I think chase your passion. Figure out a way you can work with whatever you're passionate about, and then there's a greater likeliness that you'd be happy. And I also think there's a greater likeliness you'll be rich. I don't think you'll end up being rich doing stuff you really hate, because entrepreneurship is challenging. It will never go as you anticipate. And if it's something you don't really care about, but you only want it for the money, you're not going to put in the effort it requires when things go bad, and they go bad. You're not going to go to the landlord, the bank, everybody, and knock on doors. You'll just say, okay, it didn't work out, because you have no emotional involvement. It's not your passion. It's not your child. I actually cried when I told the first employee I was leaving Fitness DK, because it was my baby. And that's how strongly connected I felt to that company. I totally teared up. I remember it very clearly. So I think that would be my number one advice. Chase happiness. Chase doing the things you are passionate about. Don't focus on the money. Focus on creating value for others. If you focus on creating value for others, they will be willing to pay you for that value. And if you create enough value, you'll make enough money and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and I know it's easy. I guess people looking at this are probably saying, "Well, it's all right. Look, look where he's sitting." Would you, if you had to make that decision, would you trade all of this for doing something you loved?
Yeah,
you would.
Yeah, my wife asked me the other day, said, "What do you want? What would you want? 10 million euro or a happy relationship?" So I want a happy relationship. She would probably have killed me if I hadn't said that anyways. But no, but I mean that. Because what does 10 million euro matter if you're miserable? I'd rather have very little. As long as I can pay my rent, even if it was in a small apartment. If I'm happy, I'm happy. There is nobody who can beat me if I'm happy. There is nobody I'd rather be if I'm happy. Why would you envy a guy with another car or whatever? If I'm happy, there is no greater success. There's no greater success I can obtain in life. Is he happy with his car? Fine. You don't beat me. You're not above me, because I'm happy. I'm at the highest place in life I can be.
Yeah, that is a great lesson, and it's one I think a lot of us struggle with. But you're right. You can, and we talked about earlier with the children. I think you could spend so much of your life trying to do something you think is going to make you happy when really it probably isn't.
I think a very important lesson in that regard is that people tend to push off happiness, the pursuit of happiness, because they think happiness is the backside of the medal when you are successful. So when you become the CEO, then I'm happy. When I make $1 million, then I'm happy. When I do this or that, I'm happy. But those things do not connect. Happiness is a goal in itself with a set of criteria. I know what makes me happy, and it has nothing to do with the things I just mentioned. So I think figure out the 5-7 things in life that makes you happy. Make sure to do them on a regular basis. That said, I'm not saying don't set goals. You should absolutely set goals, but don't expect that goals that are not related directly to happiness will make you happy. It's goals. You will feel very satisfied reaching them, but it will not necessarily make you happy, or they will maybe for a very short time, but it's not sustainable happiness.
Yeah.
For that, you need to figure out what makes you happy on a sustainable basis and keep chasing that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, writing down those things, because in most cases it isn't. Like for me, it's with my wife and family, seeing them. Yeah. That's totally free, and sometimes you're working to have time to spend with them, and it's better just to make more time to spend with them.
I think the good thing, obviously, with having made money, that I can focus on things I really like, and I can allow myself not to spend time on things I dislike. So I'm not mowing my lawn. Yeah. I hate that. So, because I hate those, all that kind of practical things. I hate administration. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to go do creative stuff, create things. That's what I love. Yeah. I love talking to people, solving all the challenges we have and moving things ahead. Yeah. I don't really like the things where you have to do it again, because when I mow the lawn, then it grows up, I have to mow it again, then it grows up, I have to mow. It's just, I can't do that.
You got to think about your lawn, I can tell it.
Yeah, I just can't do it. I think it was because I was forced to mow lawns for my pocket money when I was a kid. So I got to hate it. But, important lesson though. Don't get me wrong. It may sound, oh, you should be happy, and when you're tired, go rest. And I worked my butt off for years and years and years. But I didn't work my butt off because I had to force myself to do it. I remember I actually worked years. The first 3 years I worked in the fitness industry, I think I had 3 weeks of vacation. I worked often, months without a single day off. But I never really thought about it because I was so passionate about what I did. And we have a main member event in the weekend, Saturday, on an open house on Sunday, blah, blah, blah. It just pushed through. So I think, and that's possible if you're passionate about what you do. But I think you have, any ambition needs to be backed by effort. Otherwise, it's just a dream. Yeah. So you have to be willing to put in what it takes. And then I think you can succeed. It's not enough that you're passionate about it. You also have to, but I'm just saying that if you choose something you're passionate about, the likeliness of success is greater because you can put in so much more work if it's something you have to push yourself to do. I think if you look at workout, for instance, or exercise, for a lot of people, working out has everything to do with what they want to achieve by working out. It has nothing to do with the workout. They want to be healthy. They want to look in the mirror and say, hey, you look good today. It has nothing to do with the fact that they actually like the feeling of the muscle working. And that's the problem. I love to work out. I love that feeling. I feel more alive than ever. When I push myself hard in the gym, I feel my sweat pouring down. I feel more alive than ever. But I recognize that and accept that a lot of people don't feel that way about exercise, and that's why they give up.
Right.
And that's why I don't give up, because I love it, and they don't. That's the big difference. So that's why I will continue and keep saying, figure out what you're passionate about, because if you figure that out, you can push harder than in anything else. And that when you can push that hard, then the likeliness of you being successful is so much greater.
Right. So how can you apply that philosophy then to the fitness industry? So in general, the fitness business is getting people to do something that they don't enjoy doing, trying to achieve a goal that is probably not achievable. They're very focused on losing weight, not about the feeling. How can we create, or have you got any examples of where you can create something that people are not going there, they're not setting themselves up for failure to achieve a goal that isn't in the moment? How can we apply those to an exercise experience? Have you seen anything like that that's worked?
Well, I at the end of the day, fitness is everything but one size fits all. It's a million things fitting a million different people. But what I believe is critically important is figuring out what's your motivation. If you want to go to the gym because you actually like this, you recognize that I don't really like working out, but I love to hang out with Matthew. Well, let's make sure. I'll make sure to plan to go to the gym with you, because I won't focus so much on what we actually do in the gym, but I'll focus on the conversation with you. So I'll be successful because I have something that makes it a positive experience to be in the gym with you. And I'll continue to experience with different types of exercise until I find something. So my wife, for instance, she hates going to the gym. Maybe you have to cut that out. But she loves to dance. She's right. More of a cultural person. She sings, she dances, that's her type of bodily expression. And she could do that forever and ever. And try to drag me to both tango and salsa with little to no success. However, I think it's important to continue to try different types of exercises. Down here, I started playing paddle. It's a lot of fun. I'm not really good at tennis, so I probably wouldn't feel much for going to tennis, but paddle is so much fun. Like I played squash. I think there's so many things you can do when it comes to physical activity. Just continue to experience, try out different things until you find something that you actually like. If you end up finding out there's nothing I like, well, find out what you hate the least and the person you love the most to do it with.
Right.
Because then, the focus from what you do turns to being with it. Then it's a social activity, right? It becomes sweat working instead of networking.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip on a bit. So we've talked about Wexa. So you left Fitness DK, you went into Wexa. What kind of decided you to open Repeat, and what did you attempt to do that was a bit different in that than what you'd done previously?
Well, actually, a few years into Wexa, I started Fresh Fitness, the low-cost club group that I built in 4 years to 22 clubs and 75,000 members, and then we sold that off. This is from 2010 to 2014.
Right.
Because that's when my non-compete ran out. Got a new non-compete when I sold that, and when that ran out, then I created Repeat. And well, basically, I just, at my very core, I believe I'm a gym operator. I want to create experiences that make people want to work out. And I saw the opportunity to create an environment that would cater to a specific group of people. And that's basically what we've done with Repeat. I remember going to this high-end gym in Stockholm, which catered to a fairly older audience. I love the fact that older people work out, but they did kind of like an aqua aerobics to very old music, and they were very excited about that. But I kind of had the feeling if it's for them, it's not really for me, because I was going in to do my heaviest deadlifts, and kind of like that didn't set me up and put me in the right mood to do that. And I wasn't really surrounded by the same type of people. So that kind of reminded me how important it is to create an environment of equals. And that's basically what we try to create with Repeat, a young urban environment where you cater to predominantly the millennials. Those young or young at heart, like myself. I'm probably too old for my own gym, but I refuse to accept it. And that's basically what we created, a unique experience for a specific demography. And as I said, at my very core, I am a club operator, so it just felt natural for me to collect a team of people. Having built 2 health club groups, I knew exactly who to call and say, well, I got an idea. Are you game? And I put together a great team, and now we are a bit more than 2 years into that, and growing. We've opened 4 clubs in Denmark, and just crossed the bridge to Sweden and opened our first club, which is my first for a traditional health club group. But then I also have Barry's in Sweden.
Right, and you're the franchise.
In regards to Barry's, is obviously. I'm the chairman of Barry's Bootcamp Nordic, and Barry's Bootcamp Nordic is we have the rights for Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. Right. So there's a few more countries we have to enter over the coming years.
Yeah. So you mentioned before about a sort of group of other operators that you kind of get together with once a year. How important have you found it throughout your career to have a network of people around you that have sort of, I guess, pushed you or helped you develop yourself personally?
Well, I can't even begin to. I don't know how to express how important it's been to me, because it's probably been more important than anything. But when I was struggling with Wexit, like really struggling, I was still in this group. We actually meet 3 times a year. And I had heard a lot of people talk about low cost, and we had visited a lot of clubs, low cost clubs as well. And I was able to form my own idea of a concept inspired by some of the impressions I've had through this club and some of the journey, because we meet 3 times a year anywhere in the world. Been Singapore, Australia, Mexico, Brazil, Europe, and that has given me very hands-on understanding on the global fitness industry, which was also very helpful for me while I was the chairman of the Global Association for Health Clubs, URSA. And then also an in-depth understanding of each of those people in the group's respective businesses, because we're not competing, so we can share fairly openly what we do. And that's just been enormously helpful for me in regards to forming my own concepts and opinions, and using them kind of like a sounding board. There is an expression: if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I'm not in the wrong room with those guys, because there is so much to be learned. That's a lot of experience in that room, and I really truly value to be part of that. And that would also be a strong recommendation from my end for anybody. Make sure to surround yourself with smart people. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts in regards to what you want to do. A lot of people are unwilling to share their ideas because they're afraid somebody will rip them off. I can tell you, in the group that we have, nobody will rip you off because they think they're smarter. So they'll never do what you do, because they want to. It's not really smart until they tweaked it to their own kind of idea. Yeah. So it's impossible to get good feedback unless you're open and willing to share. So I think it's, and basically some people believe in scarcity, others believe in abundance. I believe in abundance. I don't believe that if I'm successful, it's on the behalf of somebody else, or vice versa. If they're successful, I will not be successful. So I've spent years and years to share my experiences at the trade shows and conferences, giving out speeches, sharing in articles, so on and so forth. And I happily do so because I believe we can create a bigger pie, we can make more people happy. And if you look at the thin red line in what I've done, my ambition is to help as many, when I leave this world, I want to make sure that I've helped as many people as possible live healthier, happier lives through regular exercise. Everything I've done relates to that. That is my big mission in life.
That's great. Yeah. What would you do then if you're? And now I've heard quite a few people talk about the 5 people around them, whether that's a mastermind or whether that's just friends. What happens if you are in a place like maybe you were when you were younger, where you just don't have those people around you? What advice would you give to young people to be able to kind of be around those types of people that can inspire, motivate, and help them?
Knock on doors. And today, knocking on doors is so much easier because you can look people up on Instagram, you can look them up on LinkedIn, and some people will not help you, and doors will remain closed, but others will help you. So I think the world has become smaller, and it's become easier in some ways to connect with people. So I would definitely try to knock on doors, figure out who you want to connect with and why. Be very specific with your why when you try to reach out. Just, hey, I want to learn from you. What do you want to learn? What do you want of me? How much time do you want? On how frequent a basis?
Right.
I think that's definitely a way to do that.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate, and my friends. I have different friends with a lot of drive, but I think you tend to seek out the people who are more like you. And so if I look at my friends, a lot of them have been successful within whatever they do. I have my childhood friend from back in the karate days. He's now running the most successful karate club in the country. He's the national team trainer. He went in full on the sport, which to me is equal to building a business. And the way he develops talents is very similar to how you develop talent in a business. So he's been very successful in that way. Others have been successful in business. So I think it's not necessarily those who are already successful you need to be successful yourself. They can be on the same journey as you are. But obviously sometimes trying to get advice from somebody who's done the trip. So for instance, the company I just invested in, they actually didn't really need me from a financial perspective as an investor because they're already making money. But they wanted my experience. They wanted to avoid going into all the black holes. And as my accountant said, learning by doing and paying. They wanted to avoid that and, to go from A to B as fast as they possibly can. So I can hopefully help them keep as straight a line as possible. Entrepreneurship is never a straight line, but you can straighten it out by having somebody who's done the trip once or twice to help you.
Yeah, and I guess listening to what you've said, it's probably like being successful, going on the journey. It's like, most people are not just going to fall in front of you. You're probably going to have to work and you're going to have to speak to a lot of people. But I guess eventually, if you want to surround yourself with those people, just keep going until you find someone, I guess. And
yeah.
but find someone is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's so many forums, also online, where you can easily develop relationships with people who tend to want to do the same things as you do. Just see who's commenting on which articles on LinkedIn, or who's tweeting on what, and say, well, reach out and say, well, I saw you, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's easier to find people who are where you want to be and try to connect with them than ever before.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely. So what does a typical day look like for you? A typical day of a successful businessman, investor running a big empire. Like we've all got the same amount of time in the day. How do you look at an average day, and break it up in terms of where your focus is and what you do?
So I typically get up around 6:30, sometime before 7, so I can go do my workout before the family gets up. Then I go up at around 8 o'clock, wake up the family, get the kids ready for school, have breakfast with the family, and either me or my wife takes the kids to school, and then I start working. They're at school about 9 to 3, and that's where I put in the most work, where I put all my meetings. when I have to be undisturbed. Pick up the kids and then spend a lot of time with the kids. Maybe work a little bit later in the evening once they're put to bed. Right now, a daily ritual is actually learning Spanish. So I work out on this app every day, like half an hour to pick up some Spanish.
Right.
I definitely don't work as many hours today as I did. I probably, life without kids, it depends what you look at as work. Because I'm active today as many hours, but now it's it's just being active with my kids. Whereas previously I would pretty much work. I got up, started working. I would work out sometime during the day, and then I'd work again, and then I would pass out sometime in the evening. It was basically just all work.
Really?
I felt fine about it. And today,
Do you think that's what's needed? I guess if someone wants to climb, like you're obviously, fairly up high on the ladder, to get up there, do you think that's what you've got to do? Have you got to be putting in 12 hours of work a day, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think everything is competitive. If you're not doing it, who is doing it, and who's going to win the race? When I hire people, I try to look for people that are smarter than average and willing to work harder than average. I'm not betting on the fact that I'm smarter than average, so I better work harder than average. And that's basically what I did. But not because it was not per se a decision. It just happened to be that I worked a lot because I was so engaged in what I did. And I didn't have kids to take care of at the time. So in that regard, life is tricky in the sense that a lot of people get kids at the same time as they're building their careers. I am so happy that I had done my first few exits before I got kids, because it allows me now to work in a way where I can utilize my competency, do what I do best with multiple teams, while it's at the same time being the daddy I want to be to my kids. I sure am happy that I don't have to work 70 hours or 80 hours a week right now. I just didn't want to. I wouldn't want to do that with my kids. So I put in 20 years of that.
Yeah.
And which allows me now to work in a different way, to gather enough experience that I can work in a different way and still deliver value to the teams that I work with, and which is my businesses. I don't. Is it necessary to work 12 hours a day? You probably have to work more than average. Otherwise, you have to bet on the fact that you're much smarter than anybody else. And you have to go do that math.
Yeah.
Are you so smart you don't have to work hard? I don't think so. I think most people have to put in the hours. I think if you have ambition, you have to back it by effort. If it feels like a lot of work, you're probably not doing what you should be doing. That's actually so. So if you feel I'm knackered at 6 o'clock, I've been doing this for 8 hours, and you don't feel like continuing, you should probably consider, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah. And you said earlier about now how you've transitioned your role in your business. Do you think now that you know quite a bit about that business that you can almost be like a sniper where you know where to focus on and where to put your energy and where to put your time, as opposed to kind of, maybe...
I'm definitely in a place now where given I can't work harder, I've chosen not to work harder, I need to work smarter. So I do need to be very analytical and saying, well, what are the three things in this company that are the biggest game changer, that will make the biggest difference, and make sure that the whole team that are working are focused on those few things, and that we are aligned that those are actually the most important things. But one of the most important things is the fact that I've worked with so many people over time that my ability to build strong teams is probably the prerequisite to live the life that I do now. Because and also another very important thing is I don't own my businesses. I own my businesses with my partners who are doing the everyday grind in the senior management group. I'm part of the senior management group, but they're the ones on deck every day, early to late. So, and if we are successful, they're successful because it's their business as well as it's my business. I think that's a prerequisite. So I'm also paying for my lifestyle in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. And what are those key things? And you mentioned your people and your team is one of them. What are the other things that are like where you feel you add the most value to all your different companies and shareholders?
Well, I think from a strategic perspective, analytical perspective, kind of just understanding exactly where are the key issues we have to attend to make the biggest possible difference in the company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess that's difficult sometimes, to know what the 80-20 rule, I guess, isn't it?
And I would say that is actually what comes with experience, right? That the fact is that you can work all day down in the jungle chopping through the thick forest with your machete, and I've got the privilege often to sit up in the tree and looking down and say, "Hey guys, turn right." And it can be so difficult for them to see down there because they're down in the woods. So I probably think that is definitely what experience gives you, the ability to climb up, get the overview, and make sure that you work in the right direction.
Yeah.
It can be more difficult when you are the one grinding on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would agree. So what's next? What haven't you achieved that's on your? You must have that goal list. What are some of the things business-wise that you've not achieved that you would like to accomplish over the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
It's a good question. Actually, I run out of things on my on my list in regards to personal life, because there's nothing. I wanted a motorbike.
Yeah, I've seen that beautiful Harley. Is it a Harley? Is it?
It's a Harley Davidson.
Yes.
Yeah, which I custom made. And I wanted dogs. Those were the two things left. I had a dog when I was a kid, and I always wanted dogs again. Now I have dogs and motorbike, from kind of things I wanted in my life. My wife doesn't allow me to drive the motorbike, though. That's the thing about having a doctor as your wife. From a business perspective, I'd really like to be successful with the business I'm involved with now. I see myself continuing to help businesses grow, adding my experience to the teams. I don't really see any new startups around the corner from my end. I'd rather be involved in other people's startups. But I still have 3 startups, so I'm not so super hungry to get involved. And I have 3 startups of my own, and then I'm involved in Playbook, this app where you subscribe to celebrity trainers, and then Linus, this diet company, and serve on the board of both those companies, chairman of one of them. So I'm currently involved in 5 companies, and I think that's sufficient for me. And I think that's probably going to take the next. There are different stages in their life cycle right now. So for the near foreseeable future, that's probably where my focus will be.
Yeah, that's quite a lot for most people. 5 companies to be involved in or overseeing.
Well, some more than others, but that's also why you're talking about being a sniper. Given the fact that I don't work 70 hours a day right now, that allows me to gear up, accelerate, do a sprint, and say, okay, one of the companies need me right now. Okay, I'll take whatever it takes out of my calendar and go all in on that company. So wherever somebody needs me, I can go put full effort for a period of time. So, and that will happen when you are involved with that number of companies.
Yeah, that's good. So final question then. So escape your limits is about escaping what you've told yourself is probably impossible or other people around you have said is impossible. What would be a recent example of you escaping your own personal limits?
I just learned to do a handstand.
Oh, really?
It's a tiny thing maybe. But it's more, I get inspired by these young people. A lot of times when I went to some club openings of our own, and I met some of the people that I had helped recruit for our business, and they did all these funny exercises. I said, I want to do that. Actually, I didn't only do a handstand, I also did a muscle up for the first time.
Oh, right.
And actually,
I'm trying to do that.
No, so I actually think it is a great example. Because most people would say, at 44, why would you want to try to do a muscle up? Or why would you want to learn to do a handstand at 44? And I actually think if that's your perception of 44, then it means that you believe 44 is old. I don't believe 44 is old. I intend to live to between 120 and 130. If that's the case, I don't want to be old at 44. Then I'm going to have 80 more years as a very old guy. I don't want to have that. I want to stay young, and I want my mind. I don't want to limit myself, because I did a muscle up because I wanted to do a muscle up. I didn't let anybody's beliefs in regards to. I knew I would look stupid in the gym trying to do that muscle up. I knew I'd look stupid doing my handstand trials. But now I can do it.
Yeah.
So in that regard, not giving any considerations to what other people think about you, their perception of what you should be doing because of your position, because of your age, or because of whatever. Do what you want to do. Don't let anybody limit you.
Yeah.
And live the life you want. I think that's basically what it expresses to me, that I've done those things.
Yeah.
That nobody can put me in a box. I use my social media as I want. I do the exercises I want. I don't want anybody to put me in a box, but I want to be me.
Yeah, I think that's a good, like the handstand's an interesting one, because I just 6 months ago I was doing it up against the wall because my daughter's doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, why do I want to do it? And then I thought, yeah, you know, it's the sort of thing you do when you're young, but when you're older, as you say, as you get older, you think, well, I'm past doing that. But then it's like, well, no, I'm not. It's, you know, that's your mind saying you are, and why not keep trying stuff that kids are doing? And I guess that's probably what ages people, isn't it? You know, you're thinking that you're too old to do those things.
And when you accept that you are, you are.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't accept it, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to end. Rasmus, that's been a great time with you. I appreciate you sharing some fantastic lessons, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming here. I appreciate it.
Thanks.